So I can't really see anything. Sort of over there-ish. It's not a very zoomed outy type thing either. think I got the sounds on and stuff. So this is John's Faith, Venus, Blood, Moon, Orange, Sky, Streams, something or other. No, I'm joking. It's got lots of names, but it's Faith, Venus, Blood, Moon, sort of thing. Anyway, I was thinking, what should I play on an acoustic guitar? What should I play at all? And then I thought, well, anything will get copyright struck, and I don't really care much. Let's see if they'll share some money with me. What was I going to play? I suppose right at the top of my list, beginning with A, but there was not that one. No, I wasn't going to play that one. I was going to play. Then you have to sing along to it, so that don't make any sense. I was going to play Day in the Life by the Bartles. Forgotten where I am already. They saw a photograph. I saw the photograph. He blew his mind out and it come. Didn't notice that the lights changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. Something about the Lord, don't they? Maybe an F, really. Seen his face before. And the House of Lords. That one. What a beautiful, beautiful sounding guitar. I've had a half an hour the other night playing this. Absolutely adore it. Across my head. Ran my way downstairs and drank a cup. Looking up, I noticed I was late. Grabbed my coat and grabbed my hand. Made the bus and seconds flat. Went away upstairs and had a spoke. If somebody spoke, I went into a dream. That bit. The best bit I like. Where's the? No, hang on. What the hell have I forgotten the chords now? Around. That's that E chord in the middle of that bit. I always think is genius, because you never quite work out how that thing goes round twice, but it does with the addition of the E. That's a lovely sounding acoustic guitar. That's the only, that's how I play an acoustic guitar. I hit it with a plectrum. I can't find any major fault with this at all, which is rare, but it's no surprise because it's a beautifully made thing. That's so Beatles, isn't it? Yeah, now this is an interesting test. How does this play when you capo it with a sort of standard capo? This isn't the capo I'd normally play with. So you don't really get a choice about this one. This is a fixed grip, so sounds like a bit out of tune. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play it with that capo. I'd want a Shub capo. I'm not being sponsored by Shub or anything, but that's the ones I use. They're adjustable and you can get them just to the amount of grip that you need. Now of course the microphone here is away from me, which really I should put it there and do that. I was playing it the other day. Whistly bit. Yeah, okay, so that's the sound of it anyway. What was that? Wrong chord. And then into that great bit that goes. done for that as well. Get done for everything, really. Yeah, do that one. What else is there? I could play. This is the other one I always play. Well, anyway, that was a bit of a laugh. At least three shots at being copyright struck, and see if they can see if the algorithms can keep track of those little things. That was fun. Anyway, right, let's put on the earpiece. Back to close-up noise. So this is John's Faith Venus. I'm your fire. Something. Da 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 da. Faith Venus. I'll tell you what it is. It's the Electro Cut Bloodmoon, made from solid Indonesian trembesi, solid Indonesian trembesi back and sides. The binding is solid flamed maple, and the fitting solid Indonesian fitting. Am I reading this wrong? Solid Indonesian ebony. Well, I presume that's what they mean by the fingerboard. Anyway, it's a beaut. Fitting, I guess. Fingerboard and probably bridge is the same material. Oh, yeah, possibly even the headstock, front of the headstock. Is that a laminate? Yes, it's a laminate. Well, laminate, it's a big, thick 2mm laminate. Anyway, so as you can hear, it's a beautiful sounding thing, even when played badly. And what I'm going to do is not a lot to this. I'm going to do mainly, John would like it lowered in action to make it a little easier to play. Delivered just now? I don't think so. eBay. Yeah, so really the only thing to really improve this is to take down the action here a little bit, and I've already measured it up. The high E is currently running at 2.1 on the last fret. Low E is currently 3.1. And so a target that I find acoustics like this will comfortably go to is 2 on the lower E, which is about 1.1 millimeters down, or a good safe millimeter down here, and about 0.6 of a millimeter down here, which means I have to go a little higher, or gauge for a little more when I cut on the saddle. So if you kind of gauge it as approximately, if that's half away, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I want to, a millimeter lower here is a millimeter, right? A millimeter lower here is 2 millimeters there, or 1.5 millimeters as measured there if the bridge was there. Anyway, now this thing has already got a tusk nut and a tusk saddle, and the nut is pretty well cut, except it's actually a little bit low, if anything, on the high E. And that's making me nervous, right? Because the problem is, if I lower this bridge down, then what's going to happen is I'm going to run out of action here. Now I reckon this is about 0.2. Okay, it's on 0.2. That's a bit low. Let's hope it's 0.3. No. It's about 0.25. Now the problem is, all that's going to happen if I lower this is that's going to go down. Okay, so I'm just making a note of this. First fret action on the high E is already 0.25, so that's too low really, and it's only going to go down if I reduce this, which means I'm going to have to remove this nut and either replace it or shim it. But the problem I've got is this nut isn't particularly, it doesn't appear to be, no, actually I think it might be standard, so I'm going to take a look at it, and if it's easily replaceable, I might try and find one quickly. However, the problem with this is I could really do with having had this in ready and waiting, but I didn't think we would need to do it because I genuinely thought this was all right to begin with. So looking at it, it is a fraction too low. Now what I suspect I will do is I will probably shim it with a piece of tusk, which is a funny thing to do because you might think, well, why? But it can be tusk or bone, but I want something a similar colour. I just need something to lift it up by the tiniest amount, as you can see. Now, in a way, there's no point me doing this reduction here until I've raised up this nut very slightly. And if I can't raise it the way I want to raise it, then we'll get a new one, which will delay things a little bit, which I would be disappointed in. But like I say, if there's any complaint about the guitar to begin with, it's this high E first fret action is too low. Okay, so we've got, now this is a funny bit, right? I know people are very well-meaning and they do call in to the radio show. No, they comment on YouTube and things, and they say very nice things like, well, here's a nut, and so they say, it's not particularly appropriate in this case, but let's imagine this was a typical Les Paul nut. People say things like, well, what you've got to do, mate, is you've got to get your blade, your razor blade, and you've got to cut down here, yeah? Okay, that's what you've got to do. You score down there. There is precisely no room to get any blade of any kind down there, I can promise you. You just haven't got a chance. If you get anything on this side with the fingerboard, if you get anything down there, you will be either cutting and gnarling the edge of this the ebony, or, well, I don't know what you'd be doing, but you won't get it in there. I mean, you'd require an enormous amount of force to push that in there, and the only way you'd get it in there at all would be because you're cracking this off the end. So this advice that you somehow can get a blade into there, it's unfeasible, I'm afraid. Now, the same applies on this face. When you get people, particularly in this case, it's not a problem. It's well made, but a lot of the cheaper guitars now are coming through where this finish here is sprayed on and up to and over the edge of the nut here, and as a result, it kind of glues it into place, but it becomes part of the finish. And the trouble is, if you try and break this off, whether you can, lever it off from this side, which I guarantee you can't, or whether you can tap it off, either way, it's going to shatter one way or another. As soon as this nut moves, in order to break it away from the glue fix, or even to get it to break off the finish fix on this side, it's going to shatter it, the finish. The nut's fine, it doesn't care, but it shatters the finish. So I have to say, we all read that stuff in the how-to guidebooks, okay? It doesn't actually work in practice. It just sounds good, it sounds cautious, and everybody says they do it because they want to sound like, they're the most careful people in the world. Of course, we all are careful. The last thing I want in the entire universe is to end up with a nut chopping off, either taking off bits of wood with me or bits of finish. Now, I knew that was going to come off cleanly. It has been carefully hand done. There's a nice sign. Look at that pencil line. The problem is it's just slightly too much, and it's resulted in too low an action. So I'm going to boost that. Now there are a couple of ways I could do it. You can see it's sort of got, I think that's just ultraviolets ended up turning it that colour. So like I say, there's a number of ways to do it. The best way really is to get a bit of flat material from another nut possibly, and just glue it to the bottom, and then just wear the whole lot back to the size you want. Now the problem I've got is I don't think, oh, could I? No, there's always a way. When I think I've got a spare piece of tusk, sorry, you can't see, I think, oh, I'm almost there, and you go, no, you haven't got enough to do it. That would be perfect, but it's not big enough. So the chances are, if I'm going to boost this with tusk, I'm going to need to do it with a piece of, probably going to end up being a tusk saddle, which is a bit mad because it's like throwing 10 quid away just to boost something that's only going to need about 1/10 of a millimetre boost, if that. Now another way you can do it is you can put foil on it, and foil is quite good because it sort of allows you to control the lift of the nut in an incredibly precise way. The only reason I don't do that is because it's a different colour, and it just, you know, it kind of stands out. It looks a certain way. Now, you know, we've got some sort of unbleached bone there, but it's not quite long enough. We've got some bone there nearly long enough. We've got a great chunk of, that's a nice bit of bone that's, again, still a different colour, but then again, this would change colour. This would end up being more of a tusk whitish colour anyway. We've got plastic, no, bone saddle there. Yeah, I think just a piece of bone is going to do. I'm just sort of vaguely looking for a approximate colour that might match. This has got the grey, the typical grey colour of tusk, which is sometimes how you can recognise it. I've probably got loads of little odd bits of tusk everywhere, but you never end up with just one single flat piece. I mean, the alternative is you can get a little white piece of plastic like this. Actually, might be a slim shard of bone, that, but anyway, whatever you do, it's kind of impossible to make one ready-made, and so what I find the way to do it is to start with an oversized thing that you kind of attach to it that sort of matches up pretty much like that. We'll attach that to it with glue, and then we'll work it down. Now the obvious thing is we want it to fit at both ends, so we don't want it to underhang or anything, because that will look crap. So this is my entire spare, stick them in your finger, spare bits. I remember this came off that homemade parts caster. Somebody had gone to all that trouble to make a brass nut. Look at that thing. That almost ought to have that needs a museum shelf of its own. That was just unbelievable, that thing. I think I'll keep it out just for fun. Anyway, you can remember bones and nuts, and the guitars, they come off, as they say. But I can. Every one of these tells a story. Oh, that was another thing I like to play on the acoustic, and that's Stories They Can Tell by our friend, what's his face? You know, Tom Petty. Okay, so first thing I'll do is just make sure that this is smooth on the bottom of the tusk nut, because we're going to attach an extra bit to it, so we need to do that. Then importantly, this material here needs to be dead flat and smooth too, so I'm going to just lightly run it up and down until I think it is. Mainly that's so we get a good glue fix to it. And what we'll end up with is an almost identical sized thing here, which will be great, and then it will be just a case of sanding it back. This has got a bit of goo on the front here, so we'll take that, clean that up as well if we can. So like I said, the amount of lift we're going to give this is going to be absolutely teeny tiny. The little challenge of getting this on is when we put something on here, it's very difficult to fix it immediately, or sorry, fix it quickly without it wandering off all over the place, and that's what it sort of tends to want to do. So I'm going to chuck my glue on there, hope it doesn't immediately set, and then I'm going to try as best I can, the best I can, to get it right up matched up this end and right up matched up that end before it starts to set on me. I think that will be about it. Now it's wobbling, it's going off sideways, don't do it to me. Okay, so that's a good fit. You can probably see that. Now I can help it on its way with a bit of, I've got some other accelerator here that I was recommending. I'm just going to zip over to the, am I going to zip to the vise? No, I'm going to spray this right on here like this as I hold it. Now I've no idea whether this will work with this type of glue or not. Appears not to. That's quite interesting. So there's something about, of course, these accelerators that don't make them universal, I don't think. No, maybe it did. Maybe they are more universal than I thought. That's good. There's always a worry that you buy them and they're formulated for only their brand of glue or stuff. So it's a bit sort of, there we go. So at the moment I've got a perfectly fitting thing, which has got a little bit of taking down to do at the front and a little bit at the back, so I'll be careful to do that. But it's got a lot of taking down to do from the bottom, because we don't need hardly any of this height. We're going to end up with a very much sanded back device. So the important thing is I'm not going to get worried about trying to sand these great chunks, these edges flat yet. I'm going to get this to the thinnest level possible, ready to, so that I know that it's got that little bit of lift on it, so I can just adjust these slots individually, and then we'll be ready to just flush the face up, shall we say. So to do that, I can switch to, it's not my biggest and best block, or the other thing you can do is take this to the bobbin spindle sander, work on it that way. I might just do that. Let's just hold fire on, listen out for the noise, just to see if I can get down the bulk of it to where we want to be. Noise. Noise with you. I forgot that I was bringing the noisy thing. Must remember to turn that down in the edit, or edit it out completely. That was a bit of a noisy thing. So what I've realised that I've actually got here is solid plastic, which is absolutely fine. Yeah, so it's perfectly good for this job. In fact, it might even be tusk, but judging by the way it's powdering, but it's not bone, and that's fine. So I'm just now taking this down to a much thinner condition than it was, but I can comfortably stop when I'm very, very thin on the ground. But of course, if you think about it, I know already that I was only barely too low, fractionally too low, by about 1/10 of a mil. So if I leave 1/10 of a mil on here above the original material, then I'll be comfortably within range and I shall be able to take that down easily enough. So I'm just evaluating the, well, can you see it? No, just about. I'm just evaluating the thickness still. I also want it to be nicely vertical and flat and vertical, if you get what I mean. Okay, so that's about, I would say that's leaving me about 0.2 at the back and a little bit more at the front. So I'm gone off, slightly off the vertical, so I'm now going to just bring this back to level, which should equal me out at about 2 all the way across. If I just get this down. Now, of course, if I go beyond that at this point, then I've sort of defeated the whole object. But I think that's about spot on. We're about 0.2 mil up on the game. We can flatten it out right now on this. Again, check out that it's level, slightly thicker at the back on this base side, so that's a little bit of pushing and squaring off to do there. And then we'll switch to the finer material. Have a look. Yep, almost there. Again, a little bit more to level out from the back edge of it. Okay, good. So now all I want to do is just gently press down on here and remove the extra little burr that it's providing at the front. That shouldn't be too difficult, so I'm putting the pressure right on that edge and we'll shortly be down. It'll take away the last bit of the glue. You can tip it over a little bit, hold it off the edge here, get it down and then just even it out like that. You sort of feel when you're right at the mark. Actually, when you're there, you won't be able to feel the difference at all. So again, press down on the edge a little bit. Okay, flush there with a little bit of extra height. Whoops. I'm going to flush the ends. Now, I think the thing about this is it's going to clean up the colour a little bit on the nut itself. There's not really anything we can do about that. It's there. And a little bit of levelling off there. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, and then the same on this back edge here. So I'm tipping it forward a little bit just to cut the excess off, and then I'll roll it back out flat when I think I'm close to the finish line. There you go. And again, it's cleaning up the back edge a little bit, but that's fine. So in a way, this is cheaper if you need to do this. This is cheaper than buying another nut. You know, in a sense, there's nothing wrong with most of this nut, except that it's too low, and it will be too low once we've made the adjustment to the saddle. So there's no point worrying, crying about it. It is very definitely going to be too low at that point, so it's not going to be good. So this is a way of just boosting the existing nut so it can continue doing a great job at the important bit, which is up at the top. So I think we should be at a clean edge on both sides, and then it's pretty good all round, but I'm going to do a little bit of downward pressing. That on there, that on there, right. So what I'm just going to do is very lightly now wear it just down the last little bit to even it out. And we're still going to be above the margins, which is good. So it's just a matter of very careful sanding. Okay. So if I just gently put this back on, it's going to give us a lift. What I also want to do, let's move the camera. Oh, that's the toothpick gone. Let's move the camera. I'm going to just very lightly clean up, if I can, the glue on the front of here. Not really sure what kind of glue it is. Hopefully, I mean, some of these you might find it's not actually, might not be super glue, but it's a bit crunchy, whatever it is. So it's definitely keeping the, making it a little bit bumpy on the front of there. Obviously, we want to keep it as smooth as possible before we place a nut. Now, if we place this back on here, I think what I'll do is let's put the strings back on for a minute, because I'm going to need this on in order to reduce the height of the saddle. But let's just line it up. There you go. So that's pretty good looking. There's a tiny bit of sanding to do on the back because I can still see a tiny bit of the glue. But we have, let's just tighten it up. So I'll title the middle one up first, and it's going to pull sideways until I've got the G on. It's not far off actually, but it's pretty good. Okay, right, good. It says he's gone the wrong way. Oh. Okay, good. So that's all fairly high, and what I am going to do is I'm not going to, once I've got this booted like this, I'm not going to cut down from underneath. I'm going to, when the time's right, I'm going to work all of these down just a little bit with the widening file. And then we'll have it exactly in the right position, but we'll be exactly at the right height. So now the point of it is let's keep that nut there, and let's get on and have a look at the, should we take you down this end? Let us take you down there. Should we put you down a bit there? Okay, we're down this end now, and I'm going to slack the strings off, and for the purpose of taking off the saddle. So first of all, I'll get the strings pretty slack. Because they have to be if we're going to lift the saddle out. Now this saddle, it looks pretty high. It's leaning backwards actually, so I get the feeling that the saddle isn't very well shaped at the bottom. But actually we may have to take undo the strings quite a long way if we're to get it off at all. Sometimes that's the way, especially if it's a deep slot, you've got to get it to move quite a lot of the way to get it out. So as long as the strings don't fall right off the post, that's the main thing. Okay, so now the fun is to lift it out. For that I will gently use my fret pullers, and the idea will be to try and gently pick it up and pull it, push it, pull it out. There it is. So again, this has been hand cut in the factory or by an owner, which is great. It's actually it's not leaning because it's uneven at the bottom. I think it's leaning mainly because it's tall. So we know already what the measurements are to remove. So I'm just going to move this sideways. Ouch. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is get my various drawing things, and we know that, excuse me, we know on the, what side are we dealing with? Now you'd think it was that side. Look at the size of the marks. Okay, yeah, it's that way round. 1, 2, 4, 3. Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take down on the treble side. We're going to take down 0.9 in total at most. So I'm going to mark up 0.9 on here, which is quite difficult to be that exact. I'm going to very carefully mark it with my sharp pencil, if I can keep it in one place. 0.9, and then we're going to go 1.65 to the other end. Let's go 1.6. Now again, with the saddle, it's one of those things that if you do make a mistake, you can rectify it by boosting the saddle. What matters in terms of the finished piece is that it's solid, and that the material that the strings touch is firm and supportive, and holds them and allows them to transmit their vibrations through to the top of the guitar, through the bridge. So that's the important bit. Okay, so there's my alteration, and if I just double check it down that end, that's 1.56. There it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now very carefully, if I can, mark the material I'm going to take off. Now I know that this is a slight leaning situation, so I'm going to get more at one end than the other. So it's going to involve me sort of trying to, that's a bit badly drawn, but I'll work around it. Okay, so this is now going to be a case of taking it down more on one end than the other. So to do that, I'm going to move the guitar further up the bench. I think I'll need my full-size sanding block, since we're down here. Fit it in here. Okay, start with the rough side. So what I'm going to do, knowing that it's an uneven cut, I'm going to start by cutting down on the bass end and just putting more pressure on the bass end than the treble end at this point in time, and just see how it goes. And at some point I will even out and do it as one. So all the pressure at the moment is on the bass end until we get a sort of down to an even space, and then we'll balance it up. Now as I get closer, right now I can afford it to be slightly off the vertical, but as I get closer I definitely want to train it back onto the vertical, the perpendicular, so I don't want it I don't want the bottom of the thing tilting anywhere. So now I'll start doing both sides equally, and I'm going to, it's hard to hold on to actually. I'm going to try and press down the same on both sides as I take it down towards the mark in a more of a straight line now, hopefully. Okay, so I'm just checking the lean, still good. Checking the amount left, still good. Again, try and keep the pressure in the middle, so we take the same off now all the way across. Watching the line. It's also good to scrape the edges to get rid of any little flakes, because they hide they obscure where you're actually at with the cutting. Now this is starting to lean a little bit, so I'm going to need to lean it forwards towards me and cut, and keep it in the same plane hopefully until we've got a flat base, and then I'll hopefully straighten that. Okay, so now at this point it is a case of guesswork, or experience and feel. You've always got to you've got to kind of leave yourself enough room to do any straightening ups that need to happen before you get into the final sort of light sand down. So I'm pretty close actually. So what I can do is switch it round so that we've got the middle and the lighter side, and just keep an eye on the edge here. It's looking good, and we know that's the treble side, that's the bass side over there at the moment. Okay, so right at the edge here got better cutting sandpaper, so I'm going to focus on there a minute, and I think we're pretty close to it. Perhaps a little bit more now, leaning on the treble side, if anything. Okay, I'm sort of happy where I am now. All I just want to do is just check everything, and then I want to gently sand it, and it needs a push forward just to stand it up a little bit more now. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to move with it so I don't change the orientation of the piece against the sandpaper, and that's the way of getting it to flatten out when you're at the right height. Okay, that's good. I'm going to push away a bit here. Because I'm working on the finer grade, I've got more leeway, if you like, to straighten up and stuff. Okay. Have a look. Pretty good. And tilt it away a tiny bit more. That, my dear friends, will be it. Yep. Right. Put that on there. Bring the guitar back. Lift everything up. Put everything back. That's interesting how... Oh, it looks like it's leaning because the front slope of the nut kind of goes that way. That's interesting. Okay. Now, what I can do, by the way, I know I said I was going to cut the slots down. One of the things that's good to try and avoid doing is cutting the slots down if you can help it. So on that basis, I will measure up these gaps now, and I'll see if I can, out of good discipline, I'll see if I can get to the correct height of the nut without cutting the slots. But it's always, I like to at least widen the slots so that they lose any gripping tendency. But let's just have a look at the... Take that down, that's too tight. Let's do this one. Okay. Oh yeah, right. What can you see? Let's have a look. Right, let's get a tune, just get it up to pitch for a minute, and then we'll measure the action. Right, let's have a quick check while we're here. Height of action currently is a whiff over 2. So I've been conservative. So we have potentially a tiny bit more we can take off there, but while we're at it, let us check what the height down this end is. I'm trying to be good and move the camera more because it's boring when it's stuck in one position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the heights of these outside 2 just for now. I'm going to see just how far off. Okay, 0.3, 0.55 next, just because it was there. 0.55, let's find 0.7, probably too much. No, it's not. 0.7, just about on 0.7. And here, and probably a little bit more. 0.7, 0.95, 0.7, and not 0.95, 0.7, and let's go 0.8, 0.7, 0.9, 0.85, 0.7, 0.85, 0.7, 0.85, 0.85. Okay, let's just write that down. 0.7 and 0.85, 0.7, 0.85. Now that's, we need to minus, let's go conservatively, let's go 0.3 off the treble side, and let's go 0.45 off the bass side. Okay, so we have now some targets. Now I can't really draw a line on this, it's just not going to work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these things off, so nut off and the saddle off, and I know that I've got a approximately just over, we've got about 0.1 of the saddle to do, which is a very small amount, but we still can do it if we want, but we know what we've got off there. So let's gently lift the saddle, out we come, move the guitar to one side. Hello, we're back here. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to measure the height at the treble end here, at the notch. Okay, so the height at notch is 4.4. We can lose 0.2, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to straighten this up and lose 0.2. And my sounding block's coming to pieces. Right, 0.2. Let's do it. So we had 442, remember? We want 442. 444 still. Oops. Target 442. We want 42 really. 42. Kind of difficult to get any pressure on it now. 4-3. When we get there, we'll just stop, and that will be it for the saddle. Well, yep, that's good. Okay, I'm happy with there. I'm going to stop there. 2, 2, and 1. In you go. Now we have a measure for what to take off on this one. So we're -3 on the treble side and -4.5 on the bass side. So treble is reading 7.9, so I want 7.6 on the treble side. So 7.6 on the treble side, and if the bass side is reading 7.6 and it wants 0.4 off, it wants to be 6.9 on this. 6.9, 7.6, 6.9. Now the reason they sound so different is that you can't get the caliper into there properly, so you sort of can't read it. The bass reads lower to begin with because the caliper goes quite a way into the slot. Okay, so I'm careful. Further reduction, and the treble side we want 7.6, 7.78, bass side 6.9, 7.2. Right, check again. You should be able to get it pretty dead on, but it's not always a given. Oh, 7.8, 0.2, 7.16, about 0.2 on both sides. So the amount we've actually added in this little shim is tiny. 707, 6.9 is nearly there. I'm going to lean a bit heavier on this bass end now because it's just a little bit less even. Yeah, so you end up with a shim that's really wafer thin, and you could never make it and then stick it on. 6.9 on the bass side, 7.66 on the treble side. So a tiny bit of straightening on the treble side and we're there. Lovely, that's that. Now there was a little bit of glue sticking out the back edge which I want to clean up. Cleaned up. Clean up the front edge as well, be sure. Clean up, clean up. Lovely. Right, so according to the measurement game, this now should be almost definitely dead on view. Good. It's got a little bit of plastic sitting on there. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to glue it just yet, but we're not far off. Now once I've done this and we've got both of these ends to this new action, what I'll do then is take them, glue the nut in, take everything, take the strings off, and then we'll clean the whole guitar before putting it back under load with some new strings. The nice thing about this nut is it's made to fit perfectly, or put it another way, they've designed the guitar around it, which isn't always the case. Okay. Good. Quick check of the action now. I bet this is about 0.4, possibly even a tiny bit higher, because I've been conservative all the way, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's, yeah, a little bit higher than 0.4. Well, let's guess what it is and then we know what to take off. Let's get there in the proper way. So we'll call it, what do we reckon it is? Let's go 0.5. Okay, 0.55. 0.55. No, that's 0.65. Come on. 0.55. Fine. 0.7. No. No. 0.55. It's going to be 0.6 now, isn't it? For my knowing my luck. 0.6. So we're 2.2 off. Yeah, just 0.6, 0.6 and 0.7. There you go. 0.6 and 0.7 currently. 0.6 and 0.7. So we can take down still minus 0.2 and minus 0.3 still. So a bit more to do. The other end is fine. I'm going to leave that exactly where it is. So let's see if we can do this the technically correct way, just by the science of measuring. No, go the right way. Okay. Okay, back you go. Move you go. Safely out the way you go. Right. What did we say now? We said at the treble side 0.2 and the bass side 0.3. So the bass is currently reading 6.9, 6.9, 6.9. That's what it said it was before. And the bass is the treble is currently reading 7.6. And that's where I went to. That's what I got to. 6.9. So we want target is 6.7 and 7.6. That's where we got to, and we want to take 6.6. Sorry, 6.6 and 7.4. 7.4 and 6.6 is where we're aiming for. Yep. 7.4 and 6.6. This is reading as 6.9. Yep. We want 6.6. 0.3 off that end there. Right. Okay. So this is a little bit leaning towards the back. Let's take a bit extra off the back first. Straighten this up a tiny bit. Okay. Straightened it up and thinned it down quite a lot. Switch to the fine-tuned stuff. Thin as anything. Wafer thin shim now. Okay, bass side we are getting 6.8. Bass side we're getting 7.6. Still some to go. Okay, shall we get there? It is wafer thin now, you could peel it off almost. Right, 6.7, we want 6.6, and 7.5, we want 7.4. So we are very nearly there. And so the amount of shim ultimately that we've given this nut is just phenomenally little. But we'll get to the right height any second now. Okay, that will be it. Tidy up the faces, get rid of any curly bits. There we are. That's my lot. Okay, what are we looking at? Yes! Okay, so here, now this is going to be not tricky, but we just could be ready. This is, I'm going to put some glue on here. Now this is going to go down absolutely dead flush with the edges, which is how it was. So that's the only, well, that's my principal thing. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure, I want to put some glue on it, that it stays away from the very outside, because what I don't want is as I squeeze it into place with my fingers, I don't want the glue squirting out over the sides onto the paintwork. So there's the exact position I want. And what I can do, so I'm careful, put that one there, put that one there, hold the thing in place, and put some pressure on it on both sides, and that should keep it in place nicely. And then we can restring with the others. So all of this is about making it right before we commit to it and put all the new, or put the new strings on. Obviously there's money involved in new strings, so we don't want to put them on and then discover we're not happy with the action. Right, let's get that. This is so close. stretch a little bit a minute. Tune up again. Love it. Happy. That's staying right there. Okay. So what we do is we take off the old strings and we take them off, and we could keep them. We've got another acoustic guitar coming up not so further in the week, so maybe a spare set of acoustics to use as sacrificial strings might be good. Well, a different gauge coming up, but hey. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to give it a good old once over with the cleaning stuff, and if there's any ground on grime, I can take the polishing stuff to it. Little John's doing the little hooky things with the strings. My unfavourite technique. It's not bad actually. This one's the little fold over you've got going on here is better than many other things people do to lock the strings. But I end up getting a string in my finger almost always, because there's almost no way around it. So I'm trying to unhook this like that. Very hard works. Now with just one string on, by the way, that string touched the first fret, because what it means is the thingy, so the neck stops curving, so the action's so nice and low that as the neck flattens out when the string loading's off it, suddenly your string touches the first fret. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of cleaning. So we'll remove gently. These are actually quite tight fitting things. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to put a little strip of tape behind here, because I like to be able to get these off, and I don't want to dent the these are quite stiff. Wow, these are very stiff. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, getting these out appears to be quite a challenge. There isn't really any way other than pulling them. Oh wow, that is worryingly stiff. It's not some technology I don't know about, is it? Please tell me no. No. Okay. Thank you. No, it's just that one was being funny. You think, could there be something unusual about this stringing device that I've never come across? There you go. That's always a good string, a good protector tape as well. Right, so there's me spare ones for using as sacrificial strings. Yeah, so this is now beautifully low action. Let's have a look at how it cleans up. Give this a little bit of a scrub down, and then we'll use some oil on it to give it some fresh kind of lease of life. Let's have a look. So the whole thing about acoustics, as I've seen along the last few years, and I don't claim to be an acoustic guitar stroke stringed instrument luthier, by the way. I'm just a guitar tech who learns from what he finds along the way, from having started, as some of you will know, a few years ago with a guitar that wouldn't stay in, or wouldn't seem to stay in or be in tune. Once I tuned it up, it wouldn't appear to play in tune. Nothing was right. I tuned it up, play some open chords, and it was horrible. Depressed me, and I got frustrated trying to work out what was the problem. And eventually, long story short, I went through almost being prepared to throw it away, sell it, give it away, you name it. I got so disillusioned over the time. Eventually, I had to work it out myself, because all the advice I got given, I'm not kidding you, think about it, for 2 years I was looking for an answer, and none of the advice I got given personally, didn't say it was, I mean, not to say it wasn't out there, but the advice I was given was all garbage, gobbledygook nonsense. And so, had I not found out for myself what it was, I would have got rid of that guitar and wouldn't have been any the wiser. But as it was, I figured it out and started doing this. And along the way, I've done lots of acoustic guitars, but I didn't study in any place. I just used the same sensible, common sense approaches. But one of the things that is, I was going to say depressing slightly, but I guess it is a little bit, is you find, once you've been doing this for a while, you find that you realise that acoustic guitars are by default kind of, I wouldn't say designed to fail, really. No matter how clever they are, and they are clever things, they're beautifully made in many ways, but the problem with the acoustic guitar is it's always fighting an almost unwinnable war against the forces ranged against it, in particular the loading of the strings. So, once upon a time you would have had an archtop guitar where all the forces of the compression would have been anchored to the tuners here, and the fixed that thing, God, what were the strings attached to? I forgot what it's called. Yeah, it would be anchored here, and it would be pulling against there. With the archtop, the fantail type of thing, you know what I mean. The bridge only pressed downwards, right? But here, the bridge absorbs the longitudinal pull of the strings. It's trying to pull off. So it absorbs that force as well as pressing downwards. So it's pressing a little bit downwards, but mostly trying to pull itself off. Excuse the expression. And so the whole of the design of the acoustic guitar is a lot of very clever attempts to contain that tendency. And so all that bracing and stuff is beautiful, and some of it's extremely exquisitely made and all the rest of it. But ultimately it's trying to arrest, or it's trying to prop up the forces that are trying to pull the guitar out of shape. And the problem with acoustic guitars is almost sometimes, no matter how well they're built, they will eventually lose the battle against the string loading over the years, because wood is wood, and it won't stay. This box shape here will not resist the forces of evil forever, and eventually the guitar's geometry will sort of fold in on itself, because that's what the strings are trying to do. They're trying to pull the two ends together this way. Since it can't squash that way, it's going to try and pull the bridge off, and in pulling the bridge off, it'll tend to pull up the belly of the guitar, which will raise the bridge up, which means the action will go higher. But also at the same time, it will be starting to sometimes pull the neck upwards, or sometimes it pulls so hard against here it causes this bit to duck inwards as this bit pulls up. It's a sort of twisting. Anyway, the point is that this happens whether we like it or not. And I'm just going to take the excess oil off, but it eventually happens, and the better the guitar is made, the longer it resists that deformation, as I call it, and the cheaper the guitar is usually, the quicker it succumbs to it. And in the short term, you've got quite a bit of leeway for making improvements, like I've just done there with the by using the saddle. And of course, you've always got some room for improvement down at the first fret as well, which a lot of people don't often recognise is the really major place to make a difference in the way your guitar feels to play. But so you can do, as you saw there, you can, if you've got enough height in your saddle, and if you've got enough break angle of your strings coming out from the bridge over the top of the saddle, you can make some pretty drastic playing action improvements. However, it can come to the point where there's no more room left in the saddle, or there is room in the saddle, but you don't have any more, you can't get the requisite break angle for the strings as they come out the hole here and go over the saddle. Now, the last thing you can do at that point is you can cut little slots into the bridge here at the front of the little holes that the pegs go in, and if you do that, you can regain some break angle. It's very nifty because the strings exit further forward and closer to the base of the saddle, and that means they come up and over the saddle with a bit more break angle to spare available, which then means that the strings will pull down more effectively on the bridge, or press down on the bridge, and transfer their vibrations to the guitar top. But eventually, again, that runs out of adjustment room, and then you're really left with one option, and that's the neck reset. And the neck reset is where you remove the whole glue joint here, take it apart, and shave down the faces, put a new set of angles in them, give you a whole new geometry, start again effectively. But what you're doing there is you're acknowledging the wear and the deformation of time, and you're just recutting your material back to start again, basically, and then eventually the process will begin again, and you may need to start that process all over again. Now, when you're putting these things on, you really have to be careful that you keep them pressed down, or else they have a tendency to shoot out. It's a very odd, old-fashioned way of doing it, and sometimes it just doesn't want to play. So I'm holding it down and tightening it up at the same time. Wants to shoot out, really. Okay, so as I come through there, I'm going to chop off the excess. And on we go. So that's pretty much it for this. So anyway, yeah, just to finish the story. So my experience shows me that there is that limit to what you can do, and you just have to be realistic. And so people sometimes tell me they're going to go and buy a second-hand guitar, and I always say to them, you really need to try and be very clear about what state this guitar is in terms of that cycle. So acoustic guitars, second-hand budget acoustic guitars, I often tell people it's pretty much a minefield. There are too many people out there who've got a guitar that's beginning to fold up in its past its its savable point or economically viable repair point, for a budget guitar, and it's past that point, and they're sort of trying to flog it on the Facebook marketplace or something, and it looks beautiful because they still look great, and you go and play it, and actually what you find out is that it's unplayable, and you think, oh, okay, I've bought it, but I'll take it to Sam and he'll sort it out. The problem is, if it's past that certain point, there's nothing I can do, because you're not going to, I don't do them anyway, but you're not going to want to pay me or any other tech or luthier 600 quid to take the whole neck off and completely rebuild it and reset the neck angle. You might do that with a 1946 Gibson or something, that's an heirloom or a a historically important piece, and they those kinds of guitars get that treatment all the time because they are so kind of valuable and iconic. But your £200 crafter or your £150 vintage guitar is not going to warrant that sort of £600 expenditure, unless it's completely huge sentimental value, in which case there's no price on it. Of course, that's a different measure altogether. But realistically, my advice to you would, even though it sounds a bit negative, if you've got £200-300 to spend and you're considering you want an acoustic guitar, unless you have seen one that a second-hand one that you absolutely know is in good shape and hasn't got any of the problems that I've talked about, then I would highly recommend that you go for a new quality guitar, like even a Yamaha or almost anything like that. 200 or 300 quid at most will get you a great new Yamaha, and you've got a warranty period. You've got the honeymoon period of a couple of years at least before you see any should see any signs of the string loading changing your action. And from new, all of those guitars can be set up beautifully, like this. In a sense, this is a little bit older, but this is kind of in as new condition. And one of the reasons it's in as new condition, I suspect, is that John's kept it in a case with the humidifier, and that's kept it from the excesses of humidity, oddly enough, and also protected it from dehumidifying, because the humidifier keeps it approximately the right amount. So that's one way of increasing the lifespan. So I'm going to be careful with these because I don't want to break strings, because I haven't got any spare sets of 1253s in the acoustic department. But same sort of stretching thing applies to acoustic strings. But as I say, when I've got fewer, don't have a load spares, I'm always nervous about stretching them too hard here. Okay, so like I say, a little bit of stretching to do. I'll do a little bit of up and down here, but then we're done. And this is, take my fingerprints off it. This will go back in its case, and hopefully, well, plan is to get it heading off Thursday. Let's see how we go. Should be Thursday for Friday, and then John will have it back ready for his gig, well in advance of his gig anyway. Now, one of the things I've not yet done, and I could do one of these days, and I perhaps ought to start off by doing it on mine anyway, is to put an adjustable nut on this acoustic, or an acoustic. Yeah. So I think I might do that next, well, sometime soon on my that one, Taylor, Baby Taylor, just to see, because a lot of people would be would be slightly nervous, and I'd be nervous. You know, the idea of, oh, or people think that somehow the strings have to transmit tone through the neck into the guitar, and actually, I suppose there's a bit of it in an acoustic guitar, but it's more likely that, or it's more relevant that the first thing that the most overarching thing that the nut and the saddle need to be is secure, so that they don't rattle and buzz. They need to be solid. They need to be fixed. In the case of an acoustic guitar, fixed very well and solidly to the body. But the point is, I suppose the important thing is that the nut is not supposed to resonate, because it doesn't have anything. It doesn't shake the neck and produce a tone. Whereas this is supposed to the bridge. No, you know what I mean. Yes, the bridge is the strings here press down on the bridge, and they transfer the tone, or vibrations, I should say, not tone. That's a silly way of putting it. They transfer vibrations into the guitar top, which is what makes the noise. Now, what I'm looking for at this point in time is that this one is sticking up in a way that bothers me, and I'm just looking for a flat tool to press it down safely, because I don't want it flying out. Thank you. And this third one's sticking up for some reason. There we go. That's better. Okay, there you go. I'll do another day I'll do my adjustable nut on an acoustic guitar test. But that's it for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. The time is in real time. The time is 9 o'clock. It is time to go home. But that's just about timed perfectly. So thanks for watching. And John, I hope you enjoy playing this. It's got a very low first fret action, and now a 2mm last fret action. So it's a beautiful, easy to play at both ends now. So thanks for sending it to me, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.